Well, it's Friday, lunchtime, and I got a little bit of a wild one here. We're looking at a breaking the chains of cult mind control picture I put together here. See the chains there. But we can break them. Yeah, so what was this video supposed to really be about here is some really wild effects I'm seeing from a bunch of Mormon girls who have just gone ballistic. I think it's due to mind control practices, their conditioning. So I was going to call this, are these raging paranoid Mormon girls on Haleigh Everts reviews LDS MK mind control victims? Well, that's a serious proposition, actually. So here's what I have to say on this. I've done a number of videos that explore the aspects of mind control being used in the LDS church and compared it somewhat to what goes on as told by ex-Jehovah's Witnesses and some things we've seen about Scientology and even the Moonies, where behavior control, information control, emotional control, and thought control. We don't need your thought control. Teachers, seminary teachers, leave those kids alone. Now, I like most seminary teachers. They're usually really nice people, but if we look at the teacher's manual, we can see how the seminary teachers are instructed and basically being manipulated by the brethren at the top of the church who actually know what they're doing so far as mind control and the arts of persuasion are concerned. And those are the people that I have a beef with here. So I want to look at some stuff maybe from conference pretty soon here at least, but what I'm looking at here is the effect of a life full of conditioning that a lot of these people have, and in this case all these girls are just going nuts saying, "You're being mean to Haleigh Everts." So let's look at the facts there, and I want to see where this comes from, because in these mind control cults like Mormonism, the Watchtower, whose victims are called Jehovah's Witnesses, Scientology, the Moonies, and some others, but those are the main ones we focus on generally, maybe SDA a little bit. I have to do some video on SDA compared to LDSness, but we get this martyrs complex, we get this persecution complex drummed into us for a purpose. It's for a purpose, and it's very effectively used in mind control. As far as getting, as far as group mind control goes, in manipulating people's attitudes, the way that they act and they think. And I've mentioned that Chris Johnson did a really good job. I think it's mostly number 8 in his series on the Ask Reality channel, where he talks about how he tried to save his brother when his brother left the church, and so he did some investigating, and he learned about how the mind control techniques are used on the Jehovah's Witnesses, and then he noticed it in the LDS church. And he saw how it affected people and their ability to think rationally and notice the massive red flags that people should see, but they just don't seem to. That's why when you see all these comments on the internet, especially, sometimes from Christians, sometimes from other people, are going, "What is wrong? How come LDS people are so stupid? How can they believe this BS?" Well, LDS people are probably above average in intelligence and in education generally. And so mind control doesn't require that you be stupid. But when we look at these effects, we see it from the beginning in the church. Joseph Smith always crying, "I'm the martyr, I'm being persecuted." And when we see some of the things he's written, which are provably false in many cases, I'm not saying he was never persecuted, but if you look at the facts, he deserved it. But a lot of the people who followed him sure did not deserve what happened to them at all. They were victimized by what this guy did in basically his criminal enterprise, especially what was operated, how when it was going full blast in Nauvoo, but what happened in Missouri really ruined a lot of people's lives. And as we learn about what Joseph Smith did in a criminal enterprise and what the Danites were up to, it makes more sense. But the way it's supposed to make sense to us is, oh, it's Satan. He's persecuting the true church of God. You're being persecuted for the truth's sake. You're like unto the followers of Jesus Christ. I have to sound like Gordon B. Hinckley. Jesus Christ, whom we follow. We don't want to have to be martyrs, but, we're suffering along here, and Satan is after us. He's after us everywhere, and he's on the internet. Whatever you do, don't look at those internet sites by those anti-Mormons. They are controlled by Satan, and it'll cast a spell on you. You won't, maybe the Holy Ghost won't help you or something. Be like walking into a bar or something. The Holy Ghost says, I'm out of here. Maybe that's, is that what they try to tell us? The Jehovah's Witnesses say the same thing. Same thing. Stay on jw.org where it's safe. We do not look at the blogs or videos or comment on them. We do not let them into our home of apostates. Apostates are minions of Satan. They are mentally diseased and seek to destroy your faith in Jehovah God. We get really similar rhetoric out of the brethren. There was a recent talk at BYU, I don't know, it was super recent, it was fairly recent, where basically the students were told to break off relationships, disassociate from people who might, who have lost the faith. They might infect you with their disbelief. It's like it's a disease, Don't look at any of this stuff. And so it's discredited. They're evil, Traitors and tyrants now fight Joseph Smith in vain. We've got that in the Hail to the Prophet, praise to the man song. Joseph Smith was built up like he's some kind of a superhero, like he's, like Paul Bunyan, could do no wrong. Priesthood manuals would say he'd play baseball with the boys occasionally. They'd say, pack your lunch when he's up. It'll take you that long just to go get the ball when Joseph hits it. Oh, and he could pull sticks and win with anybody. He was a he-man. He needed to be a he-man if he's going to run a mile or two or three with 200-pound gold plates and knock 3 dudes out who were trying to attack him to get the gold, which later, of course, now we're told must have been an alloy since gold plates would weigh too much. That doesn't explain why the angel was concerned that he would try to use them to get rich from. A holy prophet who was trying to get rich off of selling scriptures because of their gold content. Anyway, amazing the things we believe. So we're under attack, and that's why I use the title about these, these girls being paranoid, because they're, the apologists are name callers. Oh, Jeremy Rennells, he was trying to be deceptive with that, CES letter. We know he was trying to be deceptive somewhere. He was. Don't read it. Never mind what the content was. Never mind that the church educational, director, CES, the church educational system director never answered it. Never answered any of the questions, which were, problematic between what we've been told at church and, other evidence, like conflicts, right within the LDS scriptures, or, changing doctrines, the covered up history, the ridiculousness in the Book of Mormon between phony stories, plagiarized stuff out of the Bible with errors in it, when, stuff that the great and abominable church screwed up in the Bible. So Joseph Smith makes it more, more pure in his Joseph Smith translation, but you got the same verses copied into the Book of Mormon. Oops. How'd that happen, Joe? Yeah, with New Testament stuff. I guess that's like talking about Jesus Christ and quoting, like, you know, apostles like Paul and John and stuff, you know, before they ever would have been born, if they ever were in the first place. But I mean, you know, you put that into an Old Testament timeline and it's kind of weird. It's kind of like, why we got like all this 19th century, you know, religious arguments over grace versus, you know, works and all this kind of stuff. In the Old Testament timeline of the Book of Mormon, why are we quoting Paul or John or Peter, you know, or using their arguments and stuff like that? Why are we doing that? You know, how does that happen? How does that happen? Especially when the guy happens to have the, you know, scriptures in his house and also copies in like mistranslated stuff that's unique to the edition that they had. All these telltale things. So, anyway, never mind all that. Those are anti-Mormon lies, even if they came out of the Book of Mormon. Even if you notice that the 1830 Book of Mormon's a lot different than what we've got now. Even if Jesus told us that that thing was done correctly, as your Lord and your God liveth, I tell you it is true. Doctrine and Covenants, section 17, verse 6. Jesus talking through the mouth of Joseph Smith. He liked to do that. Unfortunately, there's about 3,900 corrections after that time. So, anyway, what are these Mormon girls doing? Why are they going completely ballistic? And then just like LDS apologists, they use these generalizations. You're an anti-Mormon. You're evil. You're attacking people. And I say, show me what I've said that's wrong. Can you show like one thing, maybe two? Show me what I've said wrong. I might make a mistake here and there. I know that's possible. Of course, if you compare that to your leaders who are basically lying through their teeth constantly, I think I'm going to look a whole lot better. But, you know, am I personally attacking someone if I do a review and disagree with someone? Anyway, let's look at this paranoia. Let's look at this complete attack mode, because these girls aren't trained in mind control, but through assimilation of behavior that we are taught, we wind up doing that ourselves, to others, and to our children. And I want to get into some comments here. You know, well, I was going to use an example of like Dallin Oaks or something. You know, oh, what was it? It wasn't. Let me see. Was it Dallin Oaks? Of course, Dallin Oaks told us, yeah, you know, we don't. I've been harping on this. You know, our testimony doesn't depend on facts. No, you just get a good feeling if it's right, if you're worthy. If you're not, you know, if you don't get a good testimony, then you must not have been worthy. But it was other stuff. It was the disconnect from other people who are telling you these other things. Of course, the LDS, you know, apologists and the essay writers whose essays are approved by the brethren, it's okay for them to cruise around the internet. They'll filter it out for us. But how come they were lying to us on LDS.org and the Gospel Topics essays, which I've pointed out in several videos, like on race and priesthood, or just even those recent ones that went over a bunch of them on the So You Want to Go For and Go Be a Missionary for the LDS Church, points out a bunch of just absolute deception and bald-faced lies on LDS.org Gospel Topics essays. If they're so honest, how come they lie to us? Provably. Yeah. You don't have to go to an anti-Mormon site to be lied to. You go to LDS.org and be lied to. These videos just help point it out. That's all. So, I want to check out some of these comments and just see, you know, I'll do a little fact check. All right? So, what was the whole thing with Haleigh Everts? What are these girls upset about, you know? I was really complimentary towards, you know, a lot of things she had to say on her videos. Hardly do any videos on her compared to, like, 3 Mormons or, like, you know, Mormon Foreman's 50 problems with the Mormon church. I got, like, just shy of, maybe even do have, I listed, like, 18 videos that are based on that are, you know, going over things there, or getting into detail. But, you know, I got a few, like 3 of Halleigh's videos I've worked on. And I've done a couple of other videos where I mention her a little bit, or talked about mind control and Why is she acting mind controlled? But these girls are, you know, Halleigh's just never responded after she screwed up my channel so that I can't do live streaming. So I've said several times, I left her comments and I've mentioned on these, hey, just contact me. Let's talk about it. You know, I'd like you to help me get rid of this copyright strike that I shouldn't have, because, you know, fair use says you can do this kind of thing. And nobody else seems to be like freaking paranoid. Even 3 Mormons, and I bashed the crap out of them because they deserve it. They haven't done anything like that though. All kinds of people. So I'm gonna show that in response to somebody else's thing. Sweeping generalizations, bad mouthing, but where are the facts? So let's see what some of these girlies are saying here. Just raging Mormon chicks. Going completely nuts. With complete paranoia. So what do we have here? Here's someone named Bailey Mizukawa. She's not the most vitriolic, but I'm disappointed. It is truly sad to see that you have this much time to harass someone. I didn't harass. I said, hey, let's talk this out like this is on the Sermon on the Mount, instead of like, you know, do something where we wind up having to go to court or something. I replaced the video you got taken down without having to use any factual evidence, because I'm pretty sure I would win based on fair use. But you said you're on welfare. Your husband's running up debt in chiropractic school. I don't want to screw up your life, and I don't want to come to Vancouver, if that's where federal court would be, to get a video up that I've replaced it and I'm doing way better with, one that doesn't even, you know, have you talking. Although I think you talking would be better, because I just do. People appreciate personality and stories and all that stuff. Haleigh does a great job. I don't really have a big beef with her. I don't think she understood what happened. Maybe she blocked me. She doesn't even know about this going on. All right. So I told this girl, look, you know, she screwed up my video channel. I'm trying to talk with her. Talk it out instead. What's the problem with that? You ever read the Sermon on the Mount? I want to see what some of these other girls go. Carly Peterson, I have just one question for you. She's not too bad, by the way. If you hate the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, why do you feel the need to bash what we believe? We're not being forced or brainwashed. Most people don't understand the difference between brainwashing and mind control. Brainwash, you realize that someone is antagonistic toward you. It's usually a captor. Generally, you have no clue with mind control. It's someone you trust that knows how to administer and condition you. Being forced or brainwashed in what we believe, it's every member of the church that chooses to believe. Do all the boys actually want to go on missions? Do they all believe it, or are they told, you know, you gain a testimony by burying it? Girls don't marry this guy unless he goes on a mission, you know? I truly think that people like you, who get into the anti-Mormon literature, deep down, truly believe the LDS Church is true. Or you wouldn't try to convince others it wasn't true. Shame on you! This girl's probably not a bad girl at all. That's what she's been told at church. She's been conditioned. But there are some that actually get a lot more vicious here. You're honestly so ridiculous. You have no right to do this to someone. Do this to someone? I actually agreed with most everything she said. She came out against the hypocrisy in the word of wisdom and the way it's administered, basically, in the church. You know, people, pig and meat, doesn't matter. Drinking 32-ounce Cokes, you know, Diet Cokes. Get in the temple recommend, but if you drink, you know, green tea filled with antioxidants, shame on you. You're breaking the word of wisdom, or a cup of coffee. You know, they actually have health benefits. Coca-Cola, give me a break. But maybe the church has got investments in it. I guess BYU's now got Coke machines. In fact, 3 Mormons, the 3 Mormons were flaunting their Coke machine in their back office or something in their behind the scenes video. Yeah, we're cool, we can drink Coke now. Okay. Oh. All right. You're honestly so ridiculous. You have no right to do this to someone, much less make false comments. I've challenged her. Show me what was false. Please do. You have not even been in an LDS temple because you can't even be worthy to do so. You also have no history knowledge at all. How about you show your face and let others make a video commenting on how unintelligent you are? I gave a lot of history on the endowment on the video that Haleigh did a nice job of sharing her experience, which she knows about the temple, but you know, she went after '06, so thinks that's got the latest changes in it. No nudity, none of the creepy stuff, basically. You know, you don't have people like reaching through your poncho to touch you and all this kind of crap. Let alone being stark naked and having them anoint you and wash you and crap, like, you know, Grant Palmer talking about, or Richard Packham, one of those two guys. I think it was Packham. And that was like in 1962. I was kind of in between there, you know. You weren't totally naked. You just had this retarded shield with the slits at the sides. You're like holding the edges like, this is really weird, you know? Yeah, it was creepy. And then you're like, oh, you're going into the booth and the stake president can put your garments on you. And you're like, I hope you're not like looking up my skirt. Anyway, the whole thing was weird. Really weird. Who wants your loins anointed by somebody, you know? It was touching the lower back when I went, thank goodness. Or I'd have been out of there. I'd have said, sorry, sucker. But it may have been different in the days earlier, like when they used to wash you naked in a bathtub, scrubbing you down with whiskey water. Whiskey-scented water. Whiskey probably killed a few germs, especially if you weren't the only one in the bathtub. Or weren't the first one. Pretty disgusting crap that went on in the temple, so I don't know anything about history. I'm just bashing the church. Rebecca says, it's kind of creepy that you spend so much time talking about her in her videos. Seems like you're a stalker to me. Yeah, that'd be it. Oh my gosh. Alright, let's take a break. Alright, so there was a quick break. So I think I was here on the Rebecca Thacker, who says, it's kind of creepy that you spend so much time talking about her in her videos, meaning Haleigh Everts. Seems like you're a stalker to me. Get a life! Do you have nothing good in your life to do? Post uplifting videos. Do some service. Live your life. I don't understand people that devote their time to bashing a church or organization in their free time. They seem obsessed with a subject, like they still believe and support what it is they're bashing. Well, so I explained to this girl, you know, trying to undo a little of the damage that I've done. The church harms people. You may not be aware of it, but, you know, there are plenty of people that are aware of it. You know, people, young men that are basically castigated for not feeling like they should serve a mission, or having the integrity to say, no, I don't believe this, or I don't have a testimony. But if you live in a culture, like let's say you lived in like Payson, Utah or something, right? You know, or Nephi or Ephraim or Heber City, where everybody's probably Mormon. So like you're just a low-life scum. No girl's going to want to marry you because they've been told the young women's their whole life. Got to marry a good return missionary, a good priesthood man. Maybe you could be the most honorable person around, but if you're not serving the, LDS Incorporated, then you're an enemy to God. It's essentially the programming so in other words, the girls are manipulated as tools to manipulate the boys. That's why some of the boys wear masking tape or something around. Their boxers or something, so they got like a garment line. looks like in their pants, so girls think, oh, okay, he's a worthy return missionary. Maybe I'll go out on a date with him or something. Yeah, the mind control affecting people is so intense. Of course, like I read before, did I read that yet? Ages 10 to 17 in Utah. No, I haven't got to that. Yeah, number one cause of death is suicide. Probably leading the nation per capita or something. I mean, did you see like some video a while back, a couple years ago, on Happy Valley? Obviously, that's kind of like about Utah County and Provo. The amount of drug overdose going on there, just completely going nuts. Why? You know, with God's true church, shouldn't people be feeling good about themselves? So I mentioned to this girl, it's not quite the way you're making it out to be, and you know, it costs people a lot of time and money to be involved with something that they may not have chosen to. They're pressured into this. You know, similarly, that people were pressured into the Catholic religion. You know, they're burned at the stake in the Inquisitions, and look what the Catholics did to the, you know, American Indians. Freaking roasted them alive and stuff. Yeah, that's pretty hefty mind control. You don't believe in the Pope? Well, we'll just burn you alive. That'll get you thinking, huh? So, yeah, I do try to expose the lies that are ruining people's lives. And I spent a lot of time spreading Mormonism, so I'm just being like Alma the Younger, trying to undo some of the evil that I unwittingly did. Wasn't aware of the destruction that took place in a lot of people's lives. I mean, we thought we were just being faithful, giving everything we had, basically, you know. It's not enough to pay tithing and fast offering. They had building fund. You're like a young couple or something, and the bishop meets with you, and you know, he's under pressure from stake president and, you know, regional reps above them or whatever. You need to come up with X amount of dough from your, you know, from your ward, guys. So there they are. Here you are, you're a young couple trying to scrimp and save something. You don't have very much income. You're doing the best you can. You having as many children as you possibly can, as fast as you can, because Spencer Kimball has told you that's what you got to do to be faithful. Do not delay the bearing of children when you get married, and do not do anything to limit the size of your family. Words of Spencer Kimball, printed it in his book called Marriage, and in his book called Faith Precedes the Miracle, and also in his John and Mary. So I was bombarded with that. Got that, you know, as that was a wedding present. Not that I regretted having it in my children. I adore my children. However, sometimes, you know, 6 months to try to save up a little money before you get started with that project of firing up the factory, then you might have a little financial cushion. But if you do, then the bishop's there to say, how much can you manage to give? Should I read you the story of the widow's mite? In case you're feeling selfish? No, my bishop was a good guy. He was a good guy, and you know, he just did what they told him to do. He didn't. I have nothing bad to say about that guy at that time. He was a very honest man. So he was a victim, and his family were victims of the cult, but he was a good man. Most of the people I've known in the church were very good people. Not all. Loved the sacrament meeting when the lady got her past the bar recently on her 4th attempt or something. She became a divorce attorney, and she was like, I just want to say that I'm grateful for people getting divorced because I get money. I mean, I know it's not good, but I need the money. I'm like, this is testimony meeting, and you're saying that? No wonder I hate you, you know? Wasn't the only time she did something like that, like, whatever. Anyway, you know, so there's some people that I just didn't have a great deal of respect for. In fact, I used to say, as long as there's a divorce attorney out there, there's a space open in hell for them. Although there are some cool people that actually, especially women probably, that are trying to do the best they can to help people settle things up in a way that makes things better for people. I knew one lady like that. She was a member of the church, really cool person actually. But I think a lot of them are wolves in sheep's clothing. So anyway, I refuted a few things Rebecca had to say here. And Elder Broomhead tells her, well, I think it's kind of creepy that the church you belong to openly tracks and stalks people that they consider inactive and threaten and cajole them into attending Mormon church services every Sunday. I'm pretty sure Elder Broomhead was probably a member of the church. A lot of the folks that like to comment on these have had experience in the church and have come to the conclusion that things were not the way that they were told in primary. It's not all popcorn popping on the apricot tree. So, yeah, building fund. It can be ruinous to people. I never, how can you save anything when they're telling you, how many dollars can you spare? What can we count on? What's your commitment for the year? You're like, sheesh, I don't know. If I save anything, then I'm not like the, widow paying the last mite. I guess I'm a selfish piece of crap. Speaking of piece of crap, got a girl calling me a piece of crap here pretty soon, I think. Here's Stacy. Now I know why you're... Oh, I wanted to get her first comment, then we'll get that. You're a douchebag! And a total bully. Where are the facts? What did I say wrong? Now I know why you're picking on her. Your pathetic channel only gets views in the triple digits when you do a video about this girl. I'll comment. I'll show on that. Some of them have done pretty well. I only have done a few, but a couple of them they've got a lot of views. They have, but the watch time isn't nearly as long. I think the attention span of some of her followers is more like geared for Facebook, like, oh, I totally like your new sweater, or your makeup's so nice, or where'd you get that lipstick? Yeah, I showed that one on Reddit the other day. I'm like, oh, let's go through these interesting posts, and then they like get in a conversation about the lipstick. All right, I want to get all the ladies pissed at me. I know lipstick can be important, but like turning the whole comment section into it gets kind of ridiculous. So I'll actually show some of these numbers on the YouTube views. I think I'll get to that. But first I wanted to, I challenge this girl. Can you be specific? I don't want you to confuse the issue here. When someone puts themselves on YouTube, they're becoming a public figure. And when they're taking a stand on particular issues, those issues are discussed. They are taken issue with. They're taken issue with in the comments, and they're taken issue with in people on YouTube with other people that do YouTube's discussing that and reviewing it. And, love the sinner, hate the sin, that kind of a thing. You got to separate the topic from the person. It's not a personal attack. Sometimes it's who does personal attacks? Dan Peterson. Dan Peterson, yeah. #1 personal attack man. The point man for the attack of discrediting and attacking anyone who says anything to point out the fact that we've got nothing but contradictions and reformed, rewritten history in the church. Dan Peterson at Fair Mormon, formerly, he's got a history like a rap sheet, but I guess he wanted to be the next Hugh Nibley, so he got BYU to give him a job doing what he wanted to do, defend the church against anti-Mormons. Yeah, so they had farms, whatever, foundation for whatever, anachronistic Reformed Mormonism. Okay, I know, I'm making that up. Whatever it is, apologetic research, Mormons, studies, whatever. So they dissolved that, hired him at whatever it was, Maxwell Institute, brought him on board there, and then decided, you know what, we're going to get rid of this guy. So they dumped him. And he got a job with Fair Mormon. So he gets to, you know, do character assassination, talk bad about people that notice, you know, that talk bad about people like maybe Jeremy Rennell's. I'm sure Peterson's gone after him. I don't really get into that whole anti-CES letter back and forth BS. It's about, you know, a lot of it's about character assassination. He had bad intent. And I want to bring this out because it's such an effective technique that is used by defaming someone, associating them with something undesirable. With, you know, you create a loaded term like conspiracy theorist. Say, okay, he's a conspiracy theorist. Oh, okay, well, theory, you know, that means it's something that's unproven. And then you just add in right-wing nut job and, you know, throw them in the loony bin, right? Don't listen to anything they say, no matter how much they can prove if you actually look at the facts. Like they say, the devil's in the details. No, just throw it all out. Same thing the Mormon apologists do. They're an anti-Mormon. They're an anti-Mormon. Just discredit everything that they say. Throw it out, reject it, get away from their sites. They're controlled by Satan. And that's what we've got. So, and that's what I see some of these girls doing. And do they even know what they're doing? Do they even realize how they're just being manipulated to act like that? I mean, gee, I want to get to this. So this other girl was really kind of nasty with me. Well, douchebag isn't exactly nice either, but this other gal, they're saying the same things. Okay, you know what? Halleigh's biggest successful video with me is like 3,400 watch minutes, and my best one's like 8,000. So she did pretty well because it's, you know, it's relatively new. But I got like 74 videos in the triple digits. So sorry, girl. Nice try. And I've asked him, what did I say wrong? Show me one thing that was false that I said. I talked about church history. I talked about the history of the endowment. That's not a personal attack on this girl. Totally supported what she said about the medical industry, about the vaccinations being pushed on everybody, you know, by Big Pharma. Totally supported the hypocrisy that she spoke out against on the Word of Wisdom. You know, people chugging Cokes, getting temple recommends. And people drinking green tea, not getting temple recommends. You're not worthy. You drink something that's healthful and good for you, has a tiny bit of caffeine, maybe a tad bit more than a hot chocolate. But you might drink a lot more hot chocolate. You know, you can pound chocolate. Oh, caffeine's not the problem. Then why did they let you drink Postum or whatever decaffeinated coffee and get a temple recommend? It's, you know, back in the day, I don't know what they do now, but it's like they decided, no, the Lord isn't against caffeine, especially if it's like in, you know, prescription drugs or something, but he is against coffee and tea for some unknown reason. Even if it's not hot, not a hot drink. Good Lord. Okay, I shouldn't say good Lord. I don't believe that's the case anymore. Oh. Okay, that girl was a little... Oh. All right, this girl. Bailey. Your obsession with Haleigh. Oh yeah, I showed this girl. Okay, I got a few videos out of her. I got like 18 with, you know, Mormon informants, 50 problems with the Mormon church. I got like 13 with 3 Mormons. I got, you know, about 7 Greg Trimble. But no, I'm obsessed with this girl. I'm a stalker. Break time. Too much. The vitriolic attack that I'm receiving from this girl needs to be looked at. Your condescending comments are disturbing, and your desire to disprove beliefs that Mormons have is disgusting. You act as if you're a kind person, but then why do you attack beliefs you don't align with? I'm not Catholic, but I don't have a channel dedicated to tearing apart Catholics, or a single Catholic person for that matter. It makes me wonder what went wrong inside of you
to spend your time that you will never get back on bringing down others. You know, the church basically was based on bringing down the Catholic religion, saying that it was the church of the devil, which I can't really disagree with, but, you know, 1 Nephi chapter 13 and 14, it's all about, you know, it's the church of the devil. So any spreading of Mormonism was about the fact that it needed to be restored because the Catholics are the church of the devil. The only reason I found your channel is because of the success of her channel. She's gaining numbers fast, and I think you recognize that. So you're banking on using her name. Sad. While we're at it, stop pretending to be a part of the Mormon religion. Okay, like I said, there's like 3 of her videos I've done something on, and then I've mentioned her in a few others maybe, but 3 that were based, you know, like reviews. And like I said, like 13 on 3 Mormons and 18 at least on, you know, Mormon informants and all kinds of other people. I made some notes there. Greg Trimble. And I'm not nice to Trimble, and I'm not nice. Actually, I was nice to one thing on his blog because he said something I agreed with. But, so I give credit where credit's due, you know? So I got kicked off the ex-Mormon subreddit because I stood up for a Mormon as their rights as a parent. So I hope they kicked me off of their hypocrites. Well, somebody was a hypocrite in the mods there. I don't know if they're all like that. Alright, so what did I have to say? Yeah, I extolled the evils of the church here. Said, dear Utah people, besides looking at the fat double-chin people from Utah, not that they're all like that, and the huge amounts of sugar consumption, green jello I didn't even mention, suicide, and the foreclosure rate is probably leading the nation when the credit crisis hit, because, you know, they're all saddled with tithing and everything else. Bankruptcies are like leading the nation or near the top. But what do these girls know about that? They're just persecuted for being Mormons, right? It's all part of the persecution complex. Anyway. Yeah, it reminds me that the dishonesty of the Mormon apologists, like Flackerman showed us, of the Scott Gordon, you know, video. So when they're challenged with facts, they got problems, you know? They have problems dealing with fact. They're great at name-calling and being vitriolic, but when we come to the factual evidence, you know, they're void. And that's what mind control does. You forget the facts, and you're just, you know, Satan's out to get you. And stay away from other websites. They have half-truths and lies. They're not dependable. That's what they tell us on LDS.org. On the Gospel Topics essays, they tell us that the information on other websites it's not to be trusted. And we've gone through that. Same thing that Jehovah's Witnesses do on JW.org. Information control. And the complexes these girls have on the persecution, but they can't come up with one fact. It's pathetic. Perfect example of mind control. They've been listening to people like Peterson and Gordon and the general authorities who say, stay away from those people, they're evil. So when we've examined what some of these Mormon apologists do, using these techniques, these tactics of trying to scare people away from information sources by discrediting them, calling them evil, satanic. That's more church leaders actually saying that. We had Scott Gordon on the video Flackerman did, documenting all these lies Scott used and misleading statements, presenting basically false evidence, trying to discredit people who were sharing the contradictions and the lies and the whitewash history. Flackerman showed it's in the videos called Tactics of a Mormon Apologist, and I recommend watching it. I've got some clips from it in my video called In-Depth Introduction into, I think, Anti-Mormonism, Mormon Truthers, or something like that. It's very recent. And so I've got some portions of Flackerman's video there, and he just totally busts Scott. He goes over this, and, you know, he shows, he checks out Scott's references, because Scott says, oh, well, look, we told you all about the Joseph Smith's polygamy or Seeger Stone, and when he checks them out, like, you know, 80% of them don't even have any relevant information. And he's like, hey, Scott, why are you using references that are like total stinking BS, not even backing up what you just made this statement of? That's a little on the dishonest side, isn't it? You know? In fact, I wanted to put some of that in here, but it is on that video. Is like talking about Joseph Smith's, you know, relationships with all these women, and you get something in the Relief Society manual. It says, oh, Joseph didn't want to be involved with polygamy, but God made him, you know, take some other wives, but, you know, he just could mess around with them. And then Flackerman reads, like, you know, the Nancy Rigdon letter where Joseph Smith's trying to get her in bed. Actually, he didn't read that one. He read with the other one with one of these other gals that the church said he's sealed to. And Joseph sends her this letter by one of his sidekicks. It says, I think Emma's going to be out of town, so make sure you come. And don't let anyone see this. Keep this letter locked in your breasts. You know, I'm sorry I'm so anxious, but I'm so lonely. Make sure Emma's not around. If she's not, make sure you get here. Can you imagine if, like, they read that like Thomas Monson said, or if Dieter said that or something, you know, or one of these apostles? They got some young girl on the side, and they're saying, make sure my wife's, I think she's out of town tonight. Make sure you get here, and keep this letter locked up in your breasts. Oh, God. That's where we got the burning bosom doctrine. I'm sure of it now. It's Joseph Smith. I kind of mentioned it in there. So the hypocrisy is beyond stinking belief, and the evidence is fake. And what on what Mormons believe, you know, the Mormon next door, when she's talking about polygamy, she puts, oh, see, Joseph Smith is a reluctant polygamist. He just, that's when, you know, she's wearing something pink here on the, I'll show it. Actually, she's one of my most popular videos. Hit most viewed here. Here we are in the pink. Anyway, Joseph Smith's polygamy, whatever. Joseph Smith's polyandry in Nauvoo, part 3, disputing Mormon next door version. Yeah, so she shows this letter, you know, for like about 3 seconds in cursive, and says, see, this is evidence that said Joseph Smith was a reluctant polygamist. He didn't want to chase these women. Oh. And that's kind of the thing Flackerman was talking about. Scott Gordon was doing that kind of thing when I did the first Vision, one of the first Vision movies I've done, and, you know, it says like, oh, William Smith says that Joseph Smith, you know, he was a truthful boy, so we can believe his first Vision story. But if you check the reference, which they did not hyperlink, so I looked it up and found it. It's all these testimonies. It's in this book of testimonies of William Smith, Joseph's brother. And every single time he says, like, the first, you know, when we started having revivals, religious revivals, you know, it was like 1823. And one, he says, maybe they started in 1822, but we started going in 1823. That's when our family started getting involved. First time Joseph got involved, he was thinking he wanted to get religion, but he just didn't. Okay. So that contradicts the entire, you know, narrative that they say that this is supporting in this, you know, Joseph Smith's first vision in 1820. He's 14 years old. Whatever, you know, family never heard of it, and all the prophets are saying he never said anything like that. You know, anyway, watch these videos. I've got that the Joseph Smith's, you know, 9 versions of the first vision is a really good video. Okay, look at this. The first vision, a narrative from Joseph Smith's accounts. This is like the ultimate stinking BS on LDS.org. This is where they do a composite. They throw in aspects of the various versions of his first vision and come up with something. In other words, you take contradictory stuff and then you make up a fake experience. Of course, they're all probably fake experiences, obviously, but they make up a new, completely fake experience, like blending version 1, where it's just Jesus, but he's having his sins forgiven, or, you know, the 1842 published, you know, the 1838 one published in 1842, which is the official one now, you know. It says he's 14, God the Father's there, and Jesus is there, and that he wondered which church was true. Whereas in the first one, you know, he says right out off the bat, I knew that there weren't any true churches on the world, in the earth. You know, all these contradictions. But here, they just, the first vision, a narrative from Joseph Smith's accounts. So in case you realized that there are multiple accounts, you know, they've got the gospel topics essays, and then and then another one, and and then this one, which says, here's a blend, and we'll even create a video to make it real for your mind. It'll go into your subconscious. You'll see it happening, and that'll make it, you know, seem believable to you. It's like, you know, like Elder Christofferson saying, if you don't have a testimony, you need to have one to go on a mission. You know, I mean, you need to be able to share it. So here's what you do. Read Joseph Smith's testimony in your own voice, then keep listening to it until you feel the Spirit testify that it's true. That the Spirit will... This will help the Spirit testify. It'll help the Spirit testify if you listen to yourself saying this stuff is true. Okay? In case you don't know anything about any psychological techniques, maybe you should do some reading. That enables the Holy Spirit to talk to you. Hearing yourself bear testimony of something until it feels right. Please. So, the mind control is out of control. Alright, so I only get triple-digit views, says this girl, when it's Haleigh Everts. Well, here, she's number 2 in views, even though it's not near the top in... It's 10th, I think, in overall minutes. And then she got a 15th and 35th, you know. So we got like 72 of these. I'm not going to go through them, but, you know, WikiLeaks has got 1,200 views, 1,273. She's got the... Actually, that wasn't even about her. I just mentioned her. I apologize that I couldn't go live at lunchtime and mentioned her. But, got a lot of views, so a lot of... Somebody watched it, you know? Yeah, so here we go, you know. 600 views, 50 problems with a Mormon church. So that's Mormon Informant. You know, I'm looking at his video and discussing aspects of these 50 points that he didn't have time to go into in 9 minutes and 37 seconds. Mormonism is not a cult. You know? Let's prove it compared to real cults like the Jehovah's Witnesses or Heaven's Gate. That's all about mind control. So, you know, it gets a few views. What do we have there? So, Lifetime's got 5,000 minutes in watch time. You know, and we saw the views that it had. And we're looking at the total, you know, 648. So, I got a few other videos. This one here, Joseph Smith's, you know, polyandry thing, that's got 647 views, and that's every week. That's got views every week. You know, I've had that up for like, I don't know, 6 months, 8 months, something like that. So, yeah, Haleigh Everts, she gets attention, and she uses, you know, she says things that are like, you know, I mean, if we look at some of what her videos say, they say, my sex life, you know, garments. She uses stuff in thumbnails that are there to get people's attention. And she talks about stuff that a lot of people don't maybe think you should talk about, you know, that's like private in your relationship. But, you know, that kind of stuff sells. But for the most part, stuff I've done was, you know, her review on her temple video, discussing the temple, and she doesn't have, you know, experience in the old days and doesn't know much about endowment history, or didn't share it if she did, because she wasn't talking about the kind of nasty stuff they used to do, right? So I think people need to know this stuff. They need to understand about the Luciferian teachings, which is why I've got videos on that kind of stuff. And You know, we talked about the other one, the things that she had issues with, and one of them was the word of wisdom. She also had an issue with modesty. So I was getting, what, am I on her case for saying that's not what they teach, actually. It's not just about, covering your garments. It is about trying to prevent, things from happening, law of chastity stuff, which she didn't seem to agree with that. She said things like, you don't have to dress modestly just to keep guys from getting turned on. If there's a hot girl in your ward wearing a tight short skirt, if her garments aren't covered, or she doesn't have to wear any, if she doesn't, if she's not showing garments, that's your problem, pal. So that's not what the brethren teach. So I pointed that out, because that's pretty misleading. You've got young women listening to that kind of stuff, and then they go, well, she said it's cool, to try to look, sexy. Those were her words. I like to look sexy. People wonder why, are surprised I'm Mormon because I try to dress sexy. One of the commenters said, Haleigh, don't advertise what you're not selling. I said, what this girl's, actually I cut that one to stop playing for a while. Trying to make peace. So, the mind control, it's just completely nuts. These people are just, they're in attack mode, these girls are. And I think that a lot of it has to do with the persecution complex, the kind of things that we're told, don't trust, it's Satan. Anybody, okay, like 3 Mormons did this. Oh, here's this guy. He was the ant, yeah. Well, that's got a lot of views too. This last one. It's doing pretty well already for just putting out like yesterday afternoon, at least for me. Guy comes back to the church. He's a lawyer. And he was ex-Mormon for a while, but he just schmoozes over some stuff. Smooths over. Well, Jesus helped me to understand why it was okay not to tell the whole truth. I did that with my wife, so it's okay for Jesus to do that, or Joseph Smith to do it. And I'm like, oh, hello? These aren't the reasons that people are leaving the church, pal. And your twisting of the situation on the Joseph Smith thing to align with apologetic BS, saying he was just emphasizing things, is not accurate at all. Anyway, hey, I wanted to show, I just wanted to do the analytics thing a little bit, just to show, in case anybody's interested here. The watch time thing. Excuse me. I'm doing the wrong thing here. Yeah, go on here. Let's see, what are people actually interested in here, and what's so there's the last 28 days. Let's go to the lifetime here. So it's going to be Mormon WikiLeaks discussing stuff Bruce McConkie said about things that were going on back around the 1978 revelation, right about the time St. Paul Temple was going to open and wasn't going to be able to operate because Negroes couldn't, participate, even if you just had 1 drop. So that one's numero uno. And then we got 33 things you got to put on the shelf to believe that the Book of Mormon is true. So that one just goes through a bunch of stuff that's like complete, whatever anachronisms or, completely impossible stories, contradictions, all kinds of stuff. And a redo of that is this one that's in number 4 position here with 6,000 minutes, which is the awesome Anti-Mormons Speak on Book of Mormon Fictional Origin. So it's basically the same video. It's just got some improvements on it, and it's catching up in a hurry, really, because it's, it's getting a fair amount of views. And then the number 31, 50 Problems with the Mormon Church video, and the Gospel Topics Essays Deception Unveiled. So that doesn't go over all of Mormon Informant and Jeremy Rennell's points that came from the CES letter that are in that video, but it goes over a number of them in some detail rather than just like one of them in a bunch of detail, which is what like about a dozen of those videos are about. And on the 50 Problems with Mormon Church. And then I got one that I did I got 2 that I did fairly recently on that are doing pretty well too, that covered well, I just kind of redid one that covered, I think, all of the 50 points in some detail, but not a huge amount of detail. So, because those are all important things, and they're basically probably all in the CES letter. And then I did one on the CES letter. I did a series, and I actually haven't done the whole CES letter in there, but here's, number one is the highest, and it's got 3,400 minutes that people have listened to it, and it's has to do with the Book of Mormon, and the origins of the Book of Mormon, and concerns with things like material that's in it, especially stuff that's copied out of the Bible, especially stuff that's copied right out of Joseph Smith's family Bible, obvious copying, obvious plagiarism, things like that. In fact, when they talk about how he probably copied out of, the Book of Napoleon, or First Book of Napoleon, or the Late War, or A View of the Hebrews is a big one. But in the Late War, it talks. It says in the whatever year, in the 7th month, in the 4th day, it talks. It's using that language, and it's talking about stuff that was happening with the American Revolution. Talking about the Declaration of Independence. Well, that's in the Book of Mormon too. Joseph Smith puts the stinking 4th of July in the Book of Mormon with the same language, that he just uses a different year, like the year of the reign of the judges or some garbage like that. But he actually says that in the 7th month and the 4th day. Just the same, the words are just the same way as it's in the Late War, and it's the 4th of stinking July in the Book of Mormon. Give me a break. Sure, you can say, well, the Nephites, it would have been a different time of year because their years or some garbage maybe, but the Nephites didn't exist, as we know from the DNA that shows everybody's Siberian. Wasn't drowned in the flood and came 15,000 years ago, because the whole thing about that is complete BS, just like Genesis is, obviously proven by the American Indians not being washed away and being of ancient date. Like the Egyptians and the Sumerians and Babylonians that in Chinese that weren't washed away either, that all had records going through that time. Yeah. And other city-states in the Middle East. I got that in the Prove All Things video. Look at it. Sorry people. Noah's Ark is fake. Doesn't matter how many animals you can get in an ark. The people were not washed away. All over the world we got people that lived through it and wrote histories. Alright, even if the Nephites didn't write history, they're people, these Eskimo, American Indian, Siberian immigrants from 15,000 years ago survived the flood and came a long stinking time ago after an ice age. LDS and Masonic apologetics on the temple, endowment, and Luciferian connections. I'm just showing a few of these so people can see what are some popular, what gets some view time, what people are finding enough value in that, especially if it's not just clickbait, and they're staying on these things and learning about LDS, General Conference, corporate governance using mind control on Mormons like Jehovah's Witnesses and SDA do. And corporate governance, really important to learn about. LDS, Mormonism is a microcosm of what their their partners and these other society. There's partnership, and it extends much beyond Mormonism, and I demonstrate that. And look at the comprehensive annual financial reports. You'll learn something that's completely mind-blowing about how things are actually run in the United States, and it's not unique to the United States. Truthfulness of the Book of Mormon, Church of Jesus Christ, Latter-day Saints is provable. Go through the scriptures and just prove it right out of there. Show stuff that Mormonism cannot survive right out of our own scriptures. It's not Catholic stuff. It's, it's all from LDS.org, all in the scriptures. Honest disclosure about the LDS temple endowment. Hidden things you should know before you go. So I've got several that involve the temple. None of them say, hey, this is the, token of whatever. I'm not doing that kind of stuff. I'm saying, these are the types of covenants you're making. This is the history. This is the kind of wacky crap they used to do, the creepy stuff. It is not, saying this is the name of the token or the sign or the, any of that kind of stuff. So it's totally watchable, even if you're, faithful, TBM, True Blue Mormon, true believing Mormon, whatever. If you're a member, you're not breaking your temple covenants, or like watching it with family that are non-members or whatever, haven't been endowed. You're not showing Masonic stuff, that you've got a sacred, secret covenant. Everything that's said is sacred is, it's because it's Masonic secrets. They just told you it's sacred. It has nothing to do with anything sacred. And I've explained that, and a bunch of these more recent ones too, that are very, very informative. You should watch them. Don't go to the temple without learning this stuff. Like I said, it's not new name Noah stuff. You're not going to watch people saying secret words and stuff. Joseph Smith's Polyandry and Nauvoo, Part 3, Disputing Mormon Expert. That was that one. And Greg Trimble, the Mormon Revolution, pretending that everything that's sick in the Mormon culture didn't come from the top down. Sorry, Greg, you're busted. Book of Mormon, Secret Combinations Unveiled, Illuminated Corporate Governance Network. Okay, a bunch of stuff about the Book of Mormon there. On a video that, just reviewed some stuff. They had these nice children reading all these wonderful Book of Mormon things, but they have no idea what a bunch of lies they are, so I document it. Dishonesty of Mormon Apologetics on LDS.org. Facts are the problem. Obfuscation is the strategy. Another 50 problems with the Mormon Church. That's the one where I go through like all of them. I think it's a pretty good video. Holy Ghost testifies that the LDS Church is true, and the JWs, and Seventh-day Adventists, the Moonies, and FLDS, and Islam. Love it. It's about testimony and the Holy Spirit, and people getting testimonies in other religions, and it's not just emotionally triggered. Some of them are, some of them are not. It's interesting. You should watch it. All right, CES letter on the Book of Abraham. So it's not just what's in the CES letter. I add, several things that Jeremy doesn't really talk about, and in his CES letter. So it's pretty thorough. It's impossible to believe that the Book of Mormon is anything divinely inspired after you watch that, unless you're completely brain dead. Because I lay out the proof. It's not a matter of me convincing someone. I'm just showing you the proof. And it's there. Book of Mormon warnings, secret combinations. There we go again. General Conference again. Yeah. Anyway. Oh, there was that Mike, what's his name, video on Book of Mormon evidence. It was a total bunch of fake stuff, which I had to show up. Polygamy. And most of the Mormon stuff that's on polygamy is just a bunch of cover by the church to make us believe Joseph Smith was just being sealed to these women. There was just 30 or 40 of them. There were hundreds and hundreds of women in the spiritual life system. So the ones that are on that go over Joseph H. Jackson and his testimony, his sworn testimony about when he went undercover in Nauvoo, got involved with the Danites, and so what's going on with the spiritual life system, all these girls getting used by Unholy Joe. Super interesting. If you're in a hurry to get to that part of it, like video number 4, there's a series of 10. It's mostly me reading stuff from that testimony. And don't just think, Joseph Jackson, well, he's an apostate. He was never a member of the church. He was taken in by Joseph Smith as a confidant. Joseph Smith hired him to murder Governor Boggs and to get Porter Rockwell freed because he was incarcerated for attempted assassination of Governor Boggs. He shot him, but didn't kill him. And he was able to ditch his gun fast enough that they wound up finally letting him go. But he was locked up for quite a while. It's full of interesting stuff. He rode with the Danites on some adventures, and thankfully he didn't wind up killing anybody. But it's good story stuff too, and it's it's not fiction.
Unless you just want to say he's a liar because Joseph Smith said he was. But what you learn in here, and it's corroborated by other Danites, when you read other things like confessions of like John Doyle Lee and read what Sarah Pratt said and stuff. You know, amazing. So as I was saying, what happens is we get corroboration. We get corroborating testimony on various things. People that love Joseph Smith, that were loyal to Brigham Young, talking about Brigham Young putting, he or other people up to, assassinations, murders, that kind of a thing. John D. Lee talks about Brigham putting hits out on people. The Danites, executing people. And yet he was loyal to Brigham. He was sealed to Brigham. Was sealed to him. So, you got people that are friendly to him, people that hated his guts, like, Joseph Jackson did. Although, he went in there to find out what was going on, and he found him to be a despicable, basically a mafia boss. Essentially what he describes was going on there. Everything from their counterfeiting to the worst things, with the whoremongering, with the spiritual wife system, having those hundreds of women basically sexually enslaved in Nauvoo, to, the Danites raiding and murdering, people, raiding Gentile towns, cities, burning them to the ground, stealing all their stuff. It's not like everybody there was guilty of like doing something to Mormons. Some of the men may have been. The men may have been gone when they attacked and, ravaged their cities and stole all their stuff, brought it to the bishop's storehouse. Deseret Industries. It wasn't called Deseret Industries. It was the bishop's storehouse. Brought to the storehouse of the Lord by milking the Gentiles, as they may have called it sometimes. Stealing from the people who were not Latter-day Saints, which is why the Missouri people wanted to not have Mormons there. Not that they were all bad, but the Danites caused a lot of trouble. And Joseph Smith's doctrine that God was going to kick the Missourians the hell out of Missouri and give the place to nobody but Mormons. And that they were going to have it and build their temple, and it was going to be Zion. And so if you had a ranch or a farm there, God's going to kick you out, and it's his divine will, and, kind of like having, Islamic terrorists in your county or neighborhood, It's a threat. So, sure, bad things went on, but it wasn't just because Satan was trying to get rid of the holy church of Jesus Christ. There's nothing holy about what unholy Joe was doing with all these girls. Taking down little Fanny Alger, 16-year-old, the nanny, into the barn and getting her pregnant, and then Emma throwing her out on the street. You think that was commanded by the Lord God 10 years before the Section 132 supposedly happened, which Joseph Smith said never happened? Right. When you look at the facts, that's why people say, how do these Mormons not know what the hell's going on? Well, that's not what's in the correlated lessons, and people are taught. It's all unreliable information, and it's the devil trying to draw you away. All these cults do that same thing. Information control, behavior control, scare you away from information that's outside the cult. Sounds too bizarre to you if you're, all believing that Joseph Smith was the most righteous dude that ever lived. But if you find out what he was really like, once you've really seen it, then you're like, how the hell did I believe this crap? But it's so far of a stretch from your belief system now that it can't possibly be true. It's too far out there. Maybe somewhere in the middle. Maybe he wasn't exactly perfect. We're not talking about him saying heck or darn or damn it. We're talking about him committing adultery, screwing all these girls behind his wife. Even the people that the church admits to having relationships with, so they call them wives, even though there was no Section 132 being preached to anyone, except people in his private circle, and he lied about it, said it didn't exist. A third of them were teenage girls. A third of them were other dudes' wives. If you were told that he was just taking care of widows, you'd better check the primary source documents. Better listen to these videos. Better read Todd Compton's, In Sacred Loneliness. I haven't even read that, but I read enough excerpts, and I read other accounts of the same women. In fact, you just go right on the internet and read josephsmithswives.org. Good Christians that are anti-Mormonizing a little bit, possibly. But they're pretty factual about it. I think they probably used Todd Compton stuff. Todd Compton is an active Mormon. He's probably a New Order Mormon. In other words, somebody who rationalizes somehow, maybe, I don't know, Todd, I don't want to put words in his mouth, but people that figure out a way to say, I'm still okay with going to church, even if they're full of it and they lied about everything. I just, it's like a networking group. I don't know. I don't know how they do it. I actually wanted to have a conversation with a guy named Jackson with an X, because he's only 18, but he's pretty smart, and somehow that's what I'm believing, that he's somewhere, he knows that there's problems, he knows that, and somehow, anyway, he's on that video. It said, Spirit tells you the church is true, and it also tells you all these other churches are true. And so there was the interview. That's a good video. It's a really good video. I'm complimenting myself. Not all my videos are as good as that. Some of them aren't that great. But most of those were the earlier ones. Yeah. Anyway, he's a really sharp young fellow. I haven't talked with him, and I only used a little bit of that thing, and I hadn't even watched the whole thing. But there's him in the middle. There's Sean guy who, is a returned missionary. He said, what, this whole thing's full of it, and I don't even believe there's any spiritual world, much less that the God of Israel's a decent guy, or even real. And then there's some other dude there who's totally full-blown TBM saying, I believe it all, and they're talking. So that guy knows some stuff. He's heard of some stuff, but he's swallowing this stuff like, the Negroes, they were just metaphorically black. Well, Negroes weren't, obviously. They are pretty visible. But the Canaanites and the Lamanites, they were just metaphorically blackened, even though it was done so that the Nephites could, notice that they were, undesirable to marry, loathsome. They won't be attracted to them, and they wouldn't be enticing to them. That's not metaphor. I just happened to find out that actually there were no Lamanites. Joseph Smith just made that stuff up so that he could, or whoever, provided the content, made it up so we could explain why American Indians came from Israel, and we have a reason to believe that the Bible story is still true, that they didn't actually come from freaking Antarctica or, whatever, from Siberia over the ice, before Adam and Eve, and not get washed away with a flood. So it's a great story to help promote Christianity. The Book of Mormon is really helpful for Christianity until they did the DNA testing and completely disproved the stuff. Not to mention, people were a little suspicious that they couldn't find, one steel sword at Cumorah after all these hundreds of thousands of people are killed fighting with steel swords. I don't think the Jaredites had the steel swords, but there weren't, millions of skeletons there either. Nor did we have, horses and elephants and wheat and chariots and all sorts of other stuff that a lot of people talk about, which I really don't even spend that much time on most of those things. But, give me a break. So these are the kind of things that are some of the more popular subjects. Unveiling the magical Masonic Mormon history, Joseph Smith's seer stone, crystal gazing, and necromancy. It's only got 1,200 minutes, but that's 20 hours of watch time. So, somebody learned something. Series of 10, Joseph Smith's Secret Combinations in Nauvoo. mind-opening. Watch them. They're in here, got playlists, and, CES playlist, Abraham playlist, Joseph Smith, Magic and Mormonism playlist, polygamy, it's not even true. I mean, polygamy is like is Brigham Young. Joseph Smith, spiritual wife system, freaking whoremonger, abuser. Not that Brigham wasn't necessarily abusive, but Joseph Smith, what he did was nothing like what we were told. Like I said, when you got friends and enemies all talking about him in their diaries and stuff, and you read corroborating stuff, it's like what I said in a couple of these videos that didn't do very well, but, the mathematics of Mormonism, intersecting lines. When you've got intersecting, corroborating testimony, especially from people on different sides of an issue that corroborate the same sort of things, Danite murders, Joseph Smith preaching Hosea chapter 3 to get women in bed with him. All this stuff. All kinds of women he tried to coerce. So, I'm inviting you to read it. I'm not threatening you with a flaming sword. I'm not telling you that all your progeny will be saved in the celestial kingdom if you do what I say, like Joseph Smith said to the girls. Nope. Just inviting you. And inviting you, all of you, including you girls who might have seen this, who were spewing hatred towards me. And that's that whole thing. Hate. You're a hater. You're a persecutor. You're a bully. All this kind of garbage you hear from the liberal media that does the same kind of mind control stuff so that you won't listen to facts. Not that they don't say anything that's true. However, you can't just discredit someone and say, hey, everything he says is not worth it. Check the facts. The source you may not agree with on everything. I don't agree with everything on every point of view that Mormon Informant has, or Jeremy Rennell's, or Flackerman. I think none of them believe there's any spiritual world. So should I just disregard all the factual information they discuss? Of course not. They're really, good at what they document. They all do really good work. Same thing with Dan Vogel. Really good work. But not everybody believes in a spiritual world. Of course, once you've experienced things that are impossible, if you've lived the poltergeist with multiple people and everybody's sober, there isn't an option not to believe anymore when certain things happen. And there may be people that believe that, and people that have been in the occult and witchcraft and all kinds of stuff that know everything, all kinds of stuff about the spiritual world, but I may not agree with what they're involved with. However, they know things that are true. So, don't throw out the information because you don't agree with or you've heard things about someone who is sharing information. Don't fall for that. It's mind control. In the name of the age of reason, amen. The Dodger game will be coming on in about a half hour, and I hope to be watching it. Go Dodgers. Like, subscribe, share. These are subliminal directives. You need to do it. Need to do it. This is mind control. Good mind control. Really good. Amen.